Essential Teaching Practices for the 21st Century Teacher by Andy Richard. I created a video on 21st century teachers versus 21st century teachers to show the differences and similarities between both of them. And that's a video I created using Powtoon and just to describe the similarities and differences. Implementation of my plan and evaluation. My implementation is to share this lesson with my 8th grade app creators class, and I created a website to house all the activities that my students can reference. The evaluation, I've created both a summative and formative assessments that can be found on my online site, and I'll know if I'm successful in teaching if my students are able to create a functioning app that solves a real-world problem for them, their family, or community. My personal and professional goals: create authentic, real-life problems students can solve with creating an app, use problem-based learning approach to motivate my students, and utilize free technology resources to enhance my classes. The struggles that I anticipate as technology issues, making sure that I have all the technology that I need in order for the students to be able to work on their apps. And even with that, sometimes there's some hiccups that come along. And the best thing is being super prepared, so you're always able to go to some unplugged activities. And then also working with pairs, you can always have a free writer, and alleviate this part of it, that I will grade them based on their group work and percent of what they contributed to the group. The measures and needs and consideration I take to reach all my audience, I can differentiate using different levels of learning for my students, such as not having as many requirements for their final app. And I also created a learning guide that goes over my differentiated instruction for grouping, ELL students, the digital divide, special needs, and differentiating learning for mixed learning levels. The course concepts applied: construct strategies for successfully managing an inclusive and collaborative classroom environment. I plan on using paired programming in my App Inventor class. The two roles are driver and navigator. The driver will do the actual coding, and the navigator will be giving directions. To be inclusive with this learning, I can have students switch roles halfway through the class so that both students can experience both roles. Analyze what it means to be a 21st century teacher and strategies for engaging 21st century learners. As the video illustrated earlier, that I am utilizing some of the skills that 21st century teachers use in their classroom, and I will apply this to my course for app creators. Examine student-centered learning methods and how to move to provide individual learning and developing the student, including social and cross-cultural skills. My students will be developing an app that solves a problem for them, their family, or community, so it will be very personalized to them. And my students also have the impact of collaborative learning on 21st century skills. I have students that will be taking part in both aspects of paired programming, where one will be the driver and one will be the navigator. The driver is one that codes the project, and the navigator is one that reads the instructions for them. And then evaluate the importance of authentic problem-based learning in the 21st century curriculum for students. And this project is authentic to them as they are solving a real world issue with a problem with an app they create. The knowledge and skills the learner will gain from my artifact, strategies for aligning instruction with meaningful standards and learning objectives. According to the article, Why Should Assessments, Learning Objectives, and Instructional Strategies Be Aligned? Assessments should reveal how students have learned and what they want them to learn, while instruction ensures that they learn it. For this to occur, assessments, learning objectives, and structural strategies need to be closely aligned so they reinforce one another. I have achieved this by creating an overview page on my website that links the learning objectives with the standards. Classroom management strategies and techniques for fostering positive behavior and setting student expectations that facilitate learning. I have set up standard operating procedures for my class that students are to log into the computers, navigate to the Google Classroom, where they'll have daily objectives are posted. I also created a website that houses all the information needed for the final project, and the link will be posted on the Google Classroom. Student-centered teaching methods and strategies, including practical examples. Research from Teaching Method article, teacher's primary role is to be a coach and facilitate student learning and overall comprehension of the material, and measure student learning through both formal and informal forms of assessment like group projects, student portfolio, and classroom participation. I showcase this on my website under the assessment tab that has multiple forms of formative assessment and summative assessment, along with a grading rubric for the final project. Strategies to foster the 4Cs: collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking, as well as problem solving, higher order thinking, and technology and digital literacy. The strategies I used for the 4Cs were to have my students work in groups collectively to solve a real world problem with an app for their family, our friends, and our community. Students will use problem solving skills to build their apps. Students will build their apps incrementally, testing and debugging often for any issues. Models for differentiated instruction and assessment for diverse learners by content, process, product, learning environment, ability, and interest. My website has a student learning guide that has differentiated instruction for grouping students, ELL students, the digital divide, special needs students, and differentiating for mixed learner levels. How authenticity access students to ensure content mastery. I will be assessing my students formally throughout the class, and then summatively assessment at the end of the class. For students to demonstrate mastery, they will need to create a functioning app that helps them solve a real world problem. Lastly, the five takeaways my audience is: 1, I want the students to use problem solving skills to create an app. 2, introduction to students to new technology. 3, students feel confident using that new software. 4, students successfully work in groups. And 5, present solution to the class using proper presentation techniques. And lastly, here are my resources, and I will be giving a demonstration of my website coming up next. This is the demonstration of the website that I created for this class. My opening page that has the welcome message, and then under project overview gives all the information for project idea, the driving question, sub-driving questions, learning objectives, content, standards to be addressed, and 21st century skills. The entry event, the problem introduction, and any additional notes that the students may need. Products and performances. This houses all of what we're doing if they're working as a group or an individual, and who they are presenting the information to for the audience and the activity that it details. Also, reflection methods and how I'd like the students to blog about this, and a peer feedback form. On my assessment page, I have my formative assessment that students will be able to click on and be able to work through, along with summative assessments and the grading rubric for the final project. The resources that are needed is a Web.0 tool, MIT App Inventor, along with a device that the students will be able to connect to. And then my project timeline, I hope to get this done in 10 days. And my student learning guide, here is the learning guide that differentiated instruction for grouping, ELL students, the digital divide, special needs, other, and differentiating for mixed learning levels. And then my resources, the Google Docs that I have, the quizzes, and the rubric. Tools and resources, the App Inventor site, computer with internet access, and an Android device. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed.